Hello and welcome. Well, today we are looking at something which is really important, something which has been really endemic in the whole of Africa, the whole world, and narrowing down to Ghana, we haven't been excused from it. We are looking at corruption and how the new administration will tackle corruption. Folks, it costs the nation so many millions, our corrupt attitude. However, anytime we talk about corruption, we are looking at the president, a minister, a DCE. However, corruption comes all the way down to even school admissions. It could be the policeman by the side of the road. It could be an administrator, a secretary, somebody photocopying paper in the ministry. We have all dabbled in it to the point where we think we who are doing the little pilfering down the ladder, we are not the corrupt ones. Corrupt is Wyoming. He took 51 million. He is corrupt. I only took 10 CDs before I did the photocopy, so clearly I'm not corrupt. And if you take the number of 10 CDs that have been paid across, you multiply it together, we probably have taken more than Wyoming did. So if a new government comes trying to stamp out corruption, how do you change our attitude so that we see wrong as wrong? A survey done by the CDD, people said that if they took newspapers that the offices bought home, they didn't think they'd done anything wrong. After all, it was just bought by the office and they can take it home. They did not think they had done anything wrong. With that attitude in mind and a new government, what do you do to actually stamp out corruption? Is your main aim just to stamp out the Wyomings and the Subas and the Sadas? How about those taking the A4 sheet and pens and papers away? Well, with me in the studio is a fine gentleman with legal brains to explain how it is that the new government will tackle this thing and change our attitude, a revolution that we need. My name is Nana Ansakwal IV, Akufo Addo, and also your host. Now, when I come back, we're going to find out how corruption can be stamped out. Well, tackling corruption in an Akufo Addo-led administration, and with me in the studio is no stranger at all, Ni Ayikwe Otu, and I think Ni is bigger than honorable. So if you Ni cancels out honorable because Ni is Ni, if you know what I'm talking about. Ni Ayikwe was a former Attorney General, and indeed has exempted his life in the legal fraternity. Ni, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm also Ni, but not as big as you. Not as big as you. And we've all seen him display in the court, out of the court. We have seen him explain things. But here we are now when power has finally been given to your government. I'm going to say the MPP, so your party who's now coming into government. And one thing that the party is going to face is corruption. Now, do you agree with me that, I mean, people who take A4 sheets home, they don't think they're corrupt. They think corruption is Suda, Saba, Sada, Jida, that's corruption. I just took 5 CDs, I'm not corrupt. How do you tackle this thing?
Well, thank you. The point is having a certain state of mind. That we want to protect government property. So when you are taking A4 sheets, which obviously do not belong to you, you are not only being corrupt in the sense of taking something that does not belong to you, but you are actually stealing. It doesn't matter the value involved. You cannot say that I stole 5 cedis, somebody stole 51 million Ghana cedis. So he's a thief, but you are not because you stole. The definition is appropriate to misappropriating a thing of which you are not the owner. So stealing and in the same vein, acting in a corrupt manner will not make any difference when it comes to the value involved in the thing. Because you see, we use the word thing, not even, So in other words, one of the greatest examples is somebody's skeleton. Say the corpse belongs to somebody. So you go and take somebody's corpse, you have stolen. And so we call it a thing. Not necessarily because he was once a human, but to even give it the name thing is sufficient to show that did it belong to you? Is that yours? How come that you've gone to take it? So taking a few A4 sheets is stealing, which is corruption. So the mindset is what we need. I was this afternoon talking to a friend about the Lee Kuan Yew experiences, changing from the third world to first. I said the first day they all wore white, at the ceremony of inauguration to show that they are not tinted. They are not corrupt in any way, and they don't want, they want that to be the outlook out there. We are clean. We wear white. So any corrupt practice would have to be dealt with and stamped up immediately. You may run into difficulties, but that's the surest way to instill discipline. That is leadership by example. If you are seen to be upright and straight, the rest will follow. You are the leader, so you set an example. So it's not like saying you've taken 5 cities. It does not belong to you. So in Singapore, even if you want to give a tip, there is a limit to what you can give by way of tip. Just don't fly money about and say, I will give you a gift. So when we start well and people get to understand, the mindset of the leaders, they may be compelled to follow that you don't have to take even 1 sheet, let alone talk about 5 sheets. It does not belong to you. Leave it where you find it.
On the larger scale, there are most people who have voted for the NPP knowing very well that, listen, there's so much money that has been misappropriated in the Jida, Zuba, Woyome, and they think, listen, if the government was serious, this money could come back. There are some sentimental attachments to these monies because people just feel that it was so rubbed in their face, you need to bring it back. Because if you go through the public accounts, there's hundreds and millions of monies that have gone wrong. Some, maybe misjudgment, misappropriation, ill thinking. It just looked like a calculated, people feel it was just calculated and robbed, and therefore we want our money back. As the new administration come in, are you going to satisfy people who voted for you, knowing that you're going to do that?
Well, we've spoken about institutional reforms. In other words, some of the institutions that fight corruption include the police service, the audit service, the EOCO, the Shuraj, and all that. Now, you find that because of the provision of Article 88 of the Constitution, which gives prosecutorial powers to the Attorney General, it appears that whatever they do, you have to refer those things back to the Office of the Attorney General. And so Shiraj can do its investigations, whatever. He's got to send it to the Office of the Attorney General. Yoko may do it, he may have to send it, Auditor General, and all that. The point is, how do you reform this kind of system where, because the officials are involved, who are involved may be government officials to the extent that maybe the Attorney General might think that, to expose them to maybe prosecution might bring down your government or give it a bad name, and therefore somebody decides to just sweep it under the carpet, We have what we call in prosecution high-profile cases, like cases that involve big fishes, and others that ordinary out of the run or the mill, you can have those things done. So we are looking at the introduction of what we call the Office of the Special Prosecutor. The Constitution itself provides that the Attorney General can always, by law, delegate some of his functions. So if it is to be done by law, then what it means is that you have to bring out a legislation, put up a bill in Parliament, setting up the office of the Special Prosecutor, getting this, maybe advertising it so people could even apply, and getting the person appointed, and give him that independence of both in terms of security of tenure and his office, maybe charging everything on a consolidated fund. It doesn't need to rely on anybody to get, funds to work. And then you give him that authority to work. As you are aware, this thing happens in America, where it involves the office of the president or something. You can have a special public prosecutor to handle the matter, as it happened in the case of Watergate, as well as in the case of Bill Clinton. But we want to institutionalize that one, so that where there are breaches of the law involving high-profile individuals, where you think the Attorney General may not want to handle it because he maybe sits in cabinet with them, you get the office of the prosecutor to handle that.
You've been an Attorney General before. How difficult is it to, look in your friend's face and say, look, I'm going to have you jailed because this document was not right, or I'm going to have you exposed because that's not right?
Well, you do a balancing act. And you always have got to remember that you are all appointees of the chief executive of the state. So you may want to seek audience, with the president, have a chat with him about some of these things and find the way forward, as to what ought to be done. It's pretty difficult. Maybe he could be a big wig, in the party, maybe heading an institution, and then he falls foul of the law, and you must act. How do you balance it as against his contributions and his membership of your party and all that? So sometimes it's not a very easy decision. In my time, if I had any such queries, I quickly would run to the president and have a chat with him. What do you think? Can we go this way or that way and things? Because we are all appointees, of the president. So surely it would be better if you had a special prosecutor to handle the matter.
Now, the special prosecutor, will he or she have cases given to him or her? Look, the Attorney General says, well, this is a high-profile case, you handle it. Or is she or he going to have enough powers to say, no, I read this in the papers, I need to call it, investigate it, and then, and deal with it?
So that if the law comes out, then they may spell out maybe the functions properly so-called, to deal with, as I said, rather high-profile cases, just not any case. Because already, as you are aware, by an executive instrument, the police prosecutes in the lower courts. There are some other agencies like Forestry Department and Immigration Service and the rest, a few specialized areas where they can also be permitted to do it. In fact, in my time, I was considering seriously allowing the Serious Fraud Office, now IOCO, to just give them the power to prosecute, on their own, because they are cracked investigators and they deal with, financial issues. They must have to study the accounts, come out with a decision that there's some hole in the accounts and things like that, So it's so specialized that if you get them to prosecute, themselves, it will be better than getting the matter referred to the agent's office with a report telling you that this is what they have found, and then maybe suggesting charges that ought to be preferred against people. So you get an experience of a prosecutor to be the one handling this office with its functions well, stated. But remember that ultimate responsibility lies with the Attorney General, because it is a constitutional provision. Unless you actually amend the Constitution. Because if you look at the Watergate scandal. At a point, the president wanted the Attorney General to fire the special prosecutor, because he thought where these states were reaching, it would affect his presidency. The Attorney General refused. He was asked to produce some tapes. He said no. They went to court to order him to produce the tapes. When matters got to a head, he said, look, I've had enough. I'm going to resign and leave the office. That is how powerful this institution could be. That to the extent that you have a very serious Attorney General who brooks no nonsense, who says, I'm going on with my work, and this is what I think ought to be done. And the special prosecutor is hardly the matter, is an independent body. Leave the body alone. It's like, say, a chief justice or a judge. Even there you appoint them. But once you are appointed and they take their judicial oath, you no longer have any power to interfere. But that's why the Constitution says that then the ultimate judicial, authority will lie with that body. And when the Supreme Court has given a decision, it is not for the president to say, or a prime minister to say, no court can tell me what to do. So I'm sure that as we craft this law, we should be able to, insulate the special prosecutor the more to enable him to come out and exercise their functions by law.
Should the special prosecutor be linked, purse string linked to the Chief Justice rather than the Attorney General? Because any link with the Attorney General, and then we are sort of back to square one. Because then if somebody like you, near you go to fall foul, and Attorney General has to sign to say, yep, I don't care whether it's equal to deal with him. Say, look, this man has been with us since Adam, so please turn a blind eye. But then if he's linked to the Chief Justice who has got no links to anybody, then maybe the special prosecutor can act. But if he has to take authority from the AG, we'll be going back to zero.
No, you don't need necessarily to take authority. That's why I'm saying that you can craft the law in such a way that he knows his functions and knows which cases he can handle. What I'm saying is that until you amend Article 88, he still has powers as the Attorney General, because ultimate responsibility lies with him. That is what the Constitution provides. But this will be an act, and the act, whatever it is still subsidiary to or subservient, if you like, to the Constitution. But once you define the rules, you are the President of the Republic. I mean, look at what happened to the lady in Brazil, the president. Parliament decided to impeach her. They went ahead, voted her, got her suspended, and went ahead, whatever is happening in Seoul. So these are the things that you have an institution which is working, and you allow the institution to work. So long as the person feels insulated sufficiently, and this is Africa, mind you, where all sorts of things come to play with their African world view of juju and things. Somebody would do this. You need somebody who really doesn't care or brook too much some of these things. I mean, after 60 years, getting to 70 and the rest, what else should you be worried about? You've heard these things, they don't work. Nobody kills anybody. But you can have a situation and say, hey, Charlie, be careful your own parents. And if you're a young person coming to warn you, this one, that don't do it. Or if you do go and do this, we're going to have a difficult rest. So get a fine gentleman or a lady who you think has what it takes to do the prosecution, craft the law, give the person the functions, because we are saying it's an institutional reform. You can have the police, for example, deciding on whether to give police protection for demonstrators. You understand? And it is for them to take that decision. Until recently, where they were rushing to court at last minutes, last hours when everything is set to say that, oh, no, we want an injunction to stop you and all that. The judges said, no, you don't have to come by ex parte application. Serve the people. It takes time to organize. And you waited the day before the election and you rush, the demonstration. You rush and go and tell them that because of ABC, you will not permit them and all that. if you have good institutions, let them work. If somebody wants to demonstrate, and the Constitution allows him, and the public order law says that give, say, 5 days, notice of your intention to organize a public event. That is all. You don't need a permit from anybody. Then nobody should put spokes in your wheels. You should be permitted to go out there and do your work. Demonstrate, let out steam, tell the world what you want, tell the government, go and present a petition, and go home and sleep. Now leave it to them to think about it. But if you have a weak institution, so somebody calls and says, no, don't allow them. We don't want a demonstration. It will make the government unpopular. You are undermining the authority, of the institution. But we want to allow the institutions to work, and you get, very efficient individuals there. They can get an effective, efficient institution in place.
How difficult would it be to amend the Constitution to put the special prosecutor in, sort of insulate him or her from Article 88? Is it difficult to put it?
Rather, it's not necessarily. You see, the funny thing is that it is only the Office of Attorney General which is provided in the Constitution. At the end of the day, the President can create any ministerial office. You can collapse others, merge others, and scrap others, add on to others. We used to have works and housing. Then we added water, works, and housing. Then I think we had something about where Papa Kwesi Indum was, forgotten the title. It had to do with public sector reform. I want to have a ministry for public sector reform and things like that. So you can bring out all kinds of permutations, all kinds of, offices. So what is the point of always providing for the office of the Attorney General only? He is also a minister. In fact, the word Minister of Justice is not added. All we have is an Attorney General. But at the end of the day, you find Attorney General, Minister for Justice. So why don't you rather scrap that than to make his own appointments? That's all. Instead of making an amendment to provide, leave it out.
Then if somebody else comes, they'll scrap it.
Not necessarily. What I'm saying is that, so what about all the other offices? You have ministers, and everybody has his remit. You should know your functions. You should know you have a very good chief director who has experience as a public servant or a civil servant. Should be able to tell you that these are remits. This is what we do in this office. So when you get there, they direct you. And then you have your own, what do you call it, various seminars and trainings, retreats, on what is expected of you in terms of your party's manifesto and all that. So because, for example, there is no provision in the Constitution for a Ministry of Health or a Minister for Health, are you saying that they don't work? Because there's no provision for Minister of Agric. You used to have just Minister of Agric, then we added food. And Agric and fisheries. We created a new one called fisheries, So maybe you can take out the office of the Attorney General, which is specifically provided for. We all know the duties of an Attorney General, and leave it like that. I've not bothered. It just struck me. If I had the synopsis, I would have checked from the U.S. Constitution whether it is also there, stated that there shall be the office of the Attorney General who shall be responsible for advising the public. Because in America, for example, you have what we call the office of the legal advisor to the presidency. He's not the Attorney General. He acts for the president, and the president generally gives the advice there. So in the Watergate scandal, the president's own private lawyer, keeps advising on what should be done. The Attorney General is also there. So nothing prevents President-elect Nana Akufo Addo from having an office of a solicitor, for the presidency. He advises the president on other matters. So I do not think there is a need for even to provide, to amend Article 88 and make for the office of, because the language used, is that the Attorney General shall be responsible for, if you like, for all criminal, prosecutions, So once you have that, unless you bring in the authority to delegate, you're going to have a problem. And yet, these are people we call the state lawyers. And when it comes to remuneration, conditions of service and the rest, are you sure that you can attract a lot of people there, and not only the recruitment, but making them to stay? Because you have retention. You have a situation where you can recruit a lot of people, but looking at the conditions of service, after some time they begin to just resign, and go into private practice.
I'm going to take a quick break here, and when I come back, I want to find out this office, if indeed it's created, will it send shivers down our spines? Are we going to make sure all contracts are dotted and signed, and sole sourcing is reduced? How much fear will this office bring into the system, and how much would it reduce our corrupt practices? Don't go. Thank you very much for staying, and we are looking at the very important subject, tackling corruption in an Akufo Addo-led administration. With me in the studio is Ni Ayikwe Otu, former Attorney General. He's been tipped for so many things, Speaker of Parliament. I think he's gone past Attorney General now, so maybe Speaker or being bigger, but that's it. We should all live an exemplary life so that when positions come, we get a bigger one. Speaker of Parliament, your name came up.
I've always maintained that it's the prerogative of the president-elect. So we keep our fingers crossed.
But just before the break, Nia, I wanted to find out if this position is successful when this office is created, realistically, you think ministers and office holders will set up and think, look, let me go through this thing again before somebody holds me to court?
Well, it makes sense, that whilst maybe you may have your way with an attorney general, you may not have your way with a special public prosecutor. Look at the exploits, for example, of a citizen vigilante, who says, I belong to your party, but I don't share your corrupt practices. So I am going all out, against you, and I believe the monies should have to be, returned to the states. And no matter what people said, whether they felt his activities will lead to their losing power or not, they continue. That's the kind of thing I'm looking at, that we should be able to know ourselves sufficiently, to know those who have that strong will,
but Namidu's name has come up as the special prosecutor. I've heard he said no, but somebody like that may be too dangerous as a special prosecutor.
Why?
He will stop at nothing. He's a hacker.
Yes.
He will hack left and right.
Yes, but if once he has the authority and the mandate to act, and he gets the feeling that what you have done is wrong, if he gets that sense from available evidence before him, why not? In prosecution, you are not necessarily persecuting anybody like Wyoming will want the world to believe that is being persecuted. No. A prosecutor wants to lay the facts before the court, but it is his prerogative to weigh the facts, to find out whether he has, say, 60-40 chance of securing a conviction before you move on. Or you can have a strategy of using one of the perpetrators of the crime, for example, as so you get more information against others. So once you get that sense, having studied the various reports, and that's the thing with that office. It's not something that you take in your stride as if, it's just one of the ministerial things. You need really to work, sit long hours, study the files that come before you, give directions, as to what ought to be done. And I'm saying that we can find, the MPP has people. I don't think it's necessarily must have to fall on Martin Amindu necessarily, no. But if you want people within the MPP who can say it as it is, who can do the prosecution the way we want it, I don't see why not. And of course, if all these things have been swept under the carpet, and as it went on, I mean, the bombshell that came out that even as late as 2015 or 2016, they were still signing contracts with the same individual, then how serious are we talking about?
You see, because NDC has been in power for, say, 8 years, MPP is now coming to power, and then you create this office. I mean, naturally, the NDC has more sins than the MPP because they've held power for long, and it says those who fetch water are more likely to break the pot. It's not that those at home are pot-breaking resistant mechanism. So won't this guy then be seen as a persecutor, because almost every other case that he'll be chasing would have been something that happened under the NDC? He would probably have to stay in office another 3-4 years before he can get some cases, in-house to chase.
No, but nobody is making any promises, and at the same time, we have to be very careful about talking about this. You create the impression that you're going to hound anybody, that you do not make them feel like they are welcome. We are not into, there's nothing fetish about evidence. What we want is the available evidence as to whether a wrong has been committed and whether government funds, are missing, and whether we could trace it somewhere and bring the monies back. If we were told, for example, that a bank was on the brink of collapse because somebody owes the bank so much, then all of a sudden we are told that, oh, you settled all his bills. From the way? As the other guys who put it, where did this money come from? All of a sudden he settled all his bills, and now he's in good shape, and he's doing all kinds of things, including buying aeroplanes and the rest. You want to find out something like that. And if the evidence is available, it's like an auditor. You're auditing the books and you are finding wrong things inside. So naturally, at the end of the day, you issue a report and you call upon those you have audited to explain, the whereabouts, and support it with receipts and things like that. So if you have evidence of wrongdoing in Suba or whatever, all those, GIDAs and the evidence of wrongdoing, what prevents anybody from looking at the evidence? So it's not like, is it the Gambian president, the elect, who goes about saying, me, I'm going to try you. What you do, how the man behaves.
He hasn't even left office.
He will quickly change his mind.
He hasn't even left office.
So I think that everybody ought to be assured that there's really, you have a duty to perform. You swear as the President of the Republic to enforce the laws of this country. And looking at facts available before you, you are satisfied that some wrong has been done. Who says that?
It won't be deliberate. This guy, like you just said, hasn't set up his office because he wants to go and pursue any particular person. But it so happens that because his winner takes all, and whoever is in government controls all of government pairs, if it's water, health, education, everything in Ghana falls at the door of government.
Yes.
It's not like other countries where you can have southern electricity, which has got nothing to do with government. And so if you are pursuing them, you are pursuing a private business. With us, everything. So without this office being intentional or deliberate, it will just be knocking on one door. Because you guys have just come into power. You haven't done anything.
No, but
unless they go all the way back to Buzia and Kufuor's time, they're not going to find anything.
No, but remember that whether we have office of the special prosecutor or not, prosecutions go on. I mean, so what happens until the office is set up? Does it mean that no prosecutions will take place? Prosecutions still take place. It's Abu Gapeli or somebody not being tried, and it's also a public official. What happened to the is it the National Service Scheme man? I don't think, is he not being tried or whatever? So trials will still have to be done. It's not because you are going to set up an office of special prosecutor just to come and start doing prosecutions. No. We already do our prosecutions. The office of the Attorney General, the police, and the rest are always working. The office of the IOCO, Shiraj, and what is this latest one about financial something center? They are all doing their work, except that at the end of the day, you refer the matters to the office of the Attorney General. When I was there, some of these things were reported. You remember, I put before court Nana Kunandu and others, quite a number of big weeks, that I felt, Kwame Pipra, I think, and the rest that I felt reading the report on the Cariden or so, felt that something wrong, took place and they ought to be prosecuted. So we don't have to wait for him for that office to be prosecuted, to be set up before any prosecutions can take place. The reports are there. It's a matter of getting the reports, studying them, and then deciding where, those things were ongoing for a long time before I got there. But one evening I just sat down and said, look, let me study this thing critically. I looked through and I was sure that things were not done properly and that these people could easily be put before court. At the end of the day, after I've left office, for example, they were, the prosecution, they entered a nolle prosequi, and that's the end of the matter. So I don't think that prosecutions would necessarily have to await the establishment of the office of the special prosecutor. I don't think so. We'll be working.
Another thing that we steal a lot in Ghana, and most of us steal, and we don't put any value on it, is time. Time, where, they have to start at 8, meaning he leaves home at 8 and probably turns up at 9. At least, if it's 8, the earliest they'll get there is 8:30. As for that 30 minutes, it's not even considered as anything. And if you multiply that 30 minutes for a year, there's probably been off work like 3 months, of work. And that's also big corruption because it affects production a lot.
Yeah.
So in the bid to stop corruption, are you taking into account our time attitude?
It's always there. Sometimes the enforcement. Leadership by example. If the workers ought to report latest by 8, it means the big man should be there before 8, and whoever has not signed his or a name by 8, what to do is to cross a line under. And I was doing it at the office of the Attorney General. I could get there early and just take the attendance book, cross over. Anybody who comes after that is late. And you can always deal with that person, institutional discipline, So show the leadership. Get there early. Make sure that, look, you are all to sign by a certain time. And then in the evening, around, late evening before close, I may not find the time to go, but get one of the assistants, to the chief director, go around and check whether everybody is at post. I was doing that. Just go around. People could leave the office between 2 and 3. When the official closing time is 5. And if you don't check, they go. But if you get somebody to go around, I remember the first time the guy came to report to me was just, he couldn't help laughing. I said, what is happening? He said, Master, they are all at post. And he was laughing, he kept smiling. What is the point? I said, they are all at post. Nobody has left, So, leadership by example. But if you leave early, or you don't care about the welfare of your people, you don't even want to know whether, the right things are being done, then, of course, these things happen. And then the president, for example, should be time conscious. When you say we are opening an event at, say, 4 or 3. 3 o'clock, the president enters, all the doors are shut. Nobody comes in anymore. Because we told you, be there at 3. The function is about to start. The president may have his own side door to come in. Once he enters all the doors, nobody comes in anymore. It's 3 on the dot. And you start. That, I believe, is what we mean by leadership by example. I will start doing that. But culture, is embedded in the people. And I remember, was it Brazil? I went on a visit, and we had a program, I think about 10. The thing started between 12 and 1. And I was wondering, what is happening here? I said, oh, this is the culture of Brazil. They don't care about time. If you say this, they can write 9 and start at 12. And it's quite normal for them. And everybody took it easy, and they had tea and other things, pastries, and, when the thing kick-started, and they were okay by that, So you can change it. I'm told that one of our leaders who was a stickler for time was Atta Mills. He was able to do that. If he says 3:3, by 2:45 he's already there. By 3 o'clock sharp, he enters. And so you can be sure that, look, this man is never late for a program. So in the same way, when we all try to do that with time, people will get used to it. That these are serious people. When he comes to the room and he finds even 5 persons, he wants to start. And that's it. Next time you think twice.
Should we introduce an hourly pay clocking system, where your clocking just goes to your, the accounts? As a nation, should we adopt it? Because if I have to come and biometrically clock in or something, then I have to be. And if I clock in before 5, I'm late. If I clock in, after 7 or after 8, you're late. And, if you mark you 3 times late, that's a huge chunk of your wages.
Yeah, I think it's being introduced in some places. I don't know whether it's necessarily, attached to salaries, but they have it. In a few places, you see this biometric machine, which you have to clock in, use your own fingerprint to do that. So it's done somewhere. As to whether it is related to salary, I don't know. But at least to track you, to be sure whether or not you are in at the time that you are expected to come in, and you yourself use your own biometric evidence to show when you got there and all that. So it could be, replicated in other places. My worry is sometimes the problem with energy and all that. What happens if it is dependent upon energy and then you have doom source?
You're late. then that day you're late.
You have doom source and all that. What happens to that? So once we get our energy things right, we could, increase it, because I know it's happening in some places already.
So, will Martin Amidu now have a freer hand to, go through the laws and getting this money from Woyome?
You see, the thing that people don't understand when we talk about locus standi in constitutional matters is that in Ghana, you don't need any locus standi to go to court over an interpretation of the Constitution. What you need is that you're a Ghanaian. So long as you're a Ghanaian, you just write that my name is Martin Amidu, I'm a Ghanaian, and I find that section so and so of this act is inconsistent with the Constitution. And I want a declaration to that effect, and I want further orders, to be made, that, look, there was this agreement that we entered into, and it appears that it is not consistent with Article 185 of the Constitution, because it looks as if it's an international agreement and ought to have gone to Parliament for parliamentary approval, and that did not happen. And therefore declare it null and void, and just make your orders that necessarily flow from that declaration, for example. Then you find that you need not have any locus standi to do that. All you need is to show that you are a Ghanaian. And that's what Martin Amidu did in most of the cases. He goes to court as a Ghanaian, says this thing looks like an international agreement. It was never placed before, Parliament. There was no parliamentary approval. So it appears to have gone, contrary to Article 185 of the Constitution, which, provides for such agreements, to be placed before
But
Parliament.
Martin wrote a letter to say, listen, if you want to see this royal money paid back to the state, vote for the MPP because they are more committed.
I read it.
So is the MPP more committed to getting money, or?
It is still in court, and it's clear. People did not understand why, for example, Amidu was being given the opportunity to, examine the gentleman as to his means and all that. What they have forgotten is that it was Amidu who first went to court, who got the orders made. So what stops him from proceeding with in the same direction to ensure that he sees a logical end to this matter? And people felt that he's taking the place of the Attorney General. No. He went to court as a citizen of Ghana. The Constitution permitted him to do that. He got orders. You are the Attorney General, where the Constitution also says that see to the execution, and you seem not to be acting. So he goes back and says that, look, I'm ready to continue. So
well, on that note, Road to Bethlehem. Every year we celebrate the birth of Jesus. However, we have your really reflected and understood the situation that occurred prior to the birth of Christ. Well, watch the Road to Bethlehem on Adom TV from Monday 19th on Friday to 23rd December 2016 at 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. with Bishop Owusu Ansah and my special guest as we delve into the sacred surroundings of the birth of Jesus Christ. Remember, it's from 19th to the 23rd of December, 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Adom TV. You won't want to miss that. And if you want a nice shirt like what I'm wearing, it's 024 366 2001. 024 366 2001. Tantis Fashions will get you one. But I want to say a big thank you to Ni Ayikwe Otu, our own darling former Attorney General. We're yet to see where he places in the new government, but I know he will be very instrumental. Niyo, thank you very much and welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.